kind of tension. It doesn't carry the color of conflict, nor is it the coldness of strangers. It is a very clear pull, present in the very air both people breathe, yet absolutely no one speaks of it. You feel it clearly when your eyes accidentally meet and linger just a beat longer than normal. You see it in conversations that are meant to be mundane, but are filled with strange, meaningful pauses. Both of you know something is sprouting, that there is an unnamed truth, yet you both choose to stand still. This isn't due to a lack of emotion, but because sometimes the silence between two people contains more psychology and calculation than words ever could. They often say silence is gold, but in the realm of feelings, this silence is usually a tug-of-war. Why do we often bypass such clear opportunities? Men tend to think, if she doesn't say anything, I must be imagining it. We fear rejection, we fear ruining a beautiful friendship, or simply fear being the only one feeling that pull. But in reality, silence isn't always indifference. It can be a protective shield. From the Femina Mind perspective, this hesitation rarely happens because of a lack of emotion. Usually, in the minds of both individuals, a battle is raging between two opposing psychological systems: attraction and self-protection. Attraction pushes you forward, but the self-defense instinct pulls you back to avoid the risk of being hurt or losing face. When these two forces are equal, it creates a state we call mutual hesitation. This is the psychological pattern that allows two people to spend months or even years circling each other without ever crossing the line. Recognizing this is crucial for men. It helps you understand that faint signals are not signs of failure, but signs of a soul that is just as anxious and expectant as yours. Clarity at this moment isn't about becoming aggressive. It's about having the vision to pierce through the fog of silence. You need to understand that movies often romanticize everything with lightning-fast confessions, but real life is much more complex. Real life is a series of small signals, trials, errors, and secret fears. Have you ever been in a blurred relationship where both of you clearly knew each other's feelings, but just watched each other across an invisible wall? If you have ever experienced that suffocating yet exhilarating feeling, leave a comment, yes. Your presence here shows you are ready to decode the deepest patterns in the partner's psychology. Next, we will deconstruct the 5 specific things actually happening in both your heads when the pull appears, but the words remain suppressed. When no one is willing to speak first, the atmosphere between two people ceases to be accidental and becomes a psychological play, filled with subtle calculations. In this section, we will deconstruct the first 2 patterns: risk management and the silent testing phase. 1. Mutual risk awareness. The first pattern is a deeply instinctive defense mechanism: mutual risk awareness. Both you and she feel the pull. You feel the connection through every story and every shared interest. But simultaneously, a rational part of the brain in both of you issues a warning. If I say this out loud, everything changes forever. A confession is not merely an expression of feeling. It is an act that completely alters the dynamic of the relationship. It shatters the comfort and safety of the just friends or blurred status. The human brain is hardwired for risk management. We fear that if we step forward and the other person isn't ready, we will lose even what we currently have. The male mistake: looking at her silence and jumping to the conclusion that she doesn't care. In reality, according to the Femina Mind mindset, that silence is sometimes an indication that she is also overthinking to protect the existing connection. Instead of relying solely on words, you must observe the consistency of nonverbal signals. 2. The silent testing phase. Because neither party wants to take a massive risk by speaking directly, you both enter a low-risk testing phase. You will see small signals emerge: half-joking comments about how you two look like a couple, light touches on the arm during conversation, or eye contact that lingers longer than usual. From a behavioral psychology perspective, this is how the brain attempts to read the partner's reaction without having to take accountability for words spoken. If you joke and she laughs along, it's a plus. If she pulls back, you can easily retreat by saying, "I was just kidding." The common male mistake, either being oversensitive, overanalyzing every tiny detail and spiraling, or being completely oblivious to her testing stones. The correct action is to look at the overall pattern. Don't just look at one smile, look at the frequency with which she creates private moments with you. Is it increasing? In the Femina Mind spirit, silence at this moment is not a barrier, it is a buffer. It gives both parties time to verify whether this emotion is fleeting or a deep attraction. If you feel the other person is sending out test signals, remain calm. Attraction doesn't need to be confirmed by a manifesto immediately. It needs to be nurtured through small but high-quality interactions. Do these tests feel familiar? Have you ever intentionally dropped a casual remark just to see if she would catch the wave? If you enjoy this kind of psychological analysis that peels back every layer of emotion, hit like. Your support tells us that this knowledge is truly helping your journey of conquest. As the testing signals become more frequent, our minds do not grow more at ease. On the contrary, they enter a state of conflicted chaos. In this section, we will deconstruct the deeper psychological barriers, where the fear of overstepping and the need for emotional safety are holding both people back. 3. Fear of misreading the situation. This is an incredibly common psychological state. Both you and she have moments of asking, "Am I imagining this, or is he just this friendly with everyone?" Attraction ambiguity creates a type of cognitive hesitation. No one wants to be the delusional one, and no one wants to make the other person uncomfortable by mistaking a polite gesture for a romantic signal. In psychology, we call this ego defense. Sitting and waiting for the perfect signal, a sign so clear that it's undeniable. But the truth is, in romance, a perfect signal rarely exists. Waiting for 100% certainty usually leads to missing the golden window of opportunity. The correct action here is to accept that a bit of uncertainty is part of the game. According to Femina Mind, true confidence doesn't lie in knowing the outcome for sure. It lies in accepting the risk that you might be wrong, but being willing to move forward anyway. 4. The preservation of emotional safety. This is an even more fortified wall. Two people often intentionally keep the conversation within the safe zone, friendly, humorous, and comfortable, but strictly avoiding topics that are too private or involve commitment. Why? Because the current state is already very good. You have someone to talk to, someone to go to dinner with, and an exciting mental connection without the pressure of an official relationship. If feelings are voiced and not reciprocated, this safety vanishes completely. Awkwardness replaces spontaneity, and the price could be the loss of a soulmate. Therefore, both parties inadvertently choose to protect the status quo rather than risk it for something greater, easily concluding, "She just wants to be friends." But you must closely observe 3 factors from the Femina Mind perspective: proximity, physical closeness; attention, the level of priority; and emotional engagement, emotional investment. If she gives you things she doesn't give her other friends, that safety is merely a shell for a deeper desire. These patterns are like cracks in a wall. They are silent, but they show that the internal structure is shifting. The danger isn't the hesitation itself, but you rationalizing your shyness with logic. You are standing before a door that is already ajar, but the fear of a broken compass stops you from walking through. If you feel like you and that person are in this safety preservation stage, understand that you are not alone. This is the most dramatic phase of any beginning. Don't forget to hit subscribe to Femina Mind so we can keep our minds clear and not be blinded by these vague fears. We are preparing to move to the final pattern, the one that explains why, even when everything is ripe, the ship still hasn't set sail. It involves the lack of one element that every man must possess. 5. You're both waiting for emotional leadership. This is the most difficult truth to accept. In many cases, what is missing is not affection, nor is it compatibility. What is missing is a person willing to take responsibility for the first emotional risk. Women, no matter how strong they are, tend to observe and wait during the initial stages of a relationship. They are waiting to see if the man has enough fortitude to break the silence and redefine the connection. According to the Femina Mind mindset, her silence is sometimes a covert test of your decisiveness. If you also choose to stand still out of fear, she may begin to doubt your strength in handling larger issues later on. The male mistake. Believing that equality means it doesn't matter who speaks first. But in the psychology of attraction, the person who makes the first move is the one who sets the frame for the relationship. Flip your perception right now. Many of the most beautiful and potential connections never begin. Not because two people didn't love each other enough, but because both stood waiting for the other to take the lead. They stand there until the tension turns into exhaustion and eventually coldness. You do not want to be the protagonist in a story of what-ifs simply because of indecision. Stepping forward doesn't necessarily mean a grand confession. It can be a straightforward statement. I feel like there's something special between us, and I want to know what you think about this. A small but clear step shatters ambiguity and moves both of you out of the artificial safety zone. Our philosophy doesn't tell you to rush in regardless of everything. We help you understand that human emotion always comes with hesitation. The difference between a real relationship and a connection that remains forever hypothetical is the courage to face uncertainty. A high-value man is one who dares to step out of his comfort zone to protect what he feels is precious. As this video ends, I want you to ask yourself honestly, if tomorrow she walks away with someone else simply because that person dared to say what you are hiding, how would you feel? Do not let a temporary protection of your ego cause you to lose a great opportunity. If both are waiting for the other to speak first, will your story ever truly begin? Thank you for walking with Femina Mind in this journey to decode these psychological mysteries. If you are standing at that threshold, consider this a reminder to be braver. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story. Together, we learn to master our emotions and master our lives. See you in the next analysis.